Hi everybody in Psych 101. This is the last video of the semester. Can you believe it? And honestly, it is one of my favorite topics, social psychology and relationships. So let me tell you what you need to know for the last exam. By the way, speaking of the last exam, don't forget that you're going to write 2 of your own essay questions. And you choose the topic. It's on the front page of Canvas. It explains it well. Anything that you've learned that you can write in a good cohesive paragraph. 5 points each, and there's 2 of them. So today's topic, social psychology, including relationships. I would highly recommend that you follow the handouts and the PowerPoints, which overlap, by the way. There are PowerPoint photocopies on the handouts as well, in addition, because there's no actual skeleton notes for today. So let's get rolling. First, social psychology classic studies. Well, maybe not famous to everybody, but famous to psychology students and certainly to psychologists. So, one of the most important ones is Stanley Milgram's study of obedience. So here's what he did. He had people volunteer to come, employees, students, whomever, at the university where he worked, and volunteer to be part of a study that he told them almost nothing about. One person was assigned to be the student and the other one to be the teacher. They were placed in separate rooms. The teacher would try to teach the student a list of words. The student, through a microphone, would respond back. When the student would get something wrong, Milgram would stand behind the teacher, again in a different room, and tell that person, flip the first lever, because there was a metal box with a bunch of levers in front of him. And yes, it was all males in front of him. Not much diversity back then. But anyway, the student was wired up, and the teacher would get to see this before the study even started. So basically, as the teacher, you thought you were electrocuting someone. And by the end, the student would say, stop doing this, you can't do this to me, I didn't agree to this, things like that. But Milgram would instruct the teacher, keep going. After a while, the responses were no response, dead silence. Milgram would tell the teacher, volunteer, keep going. That's not a correct answer. 65% of people were willing to go all the way, thinking they probably just killed somebody. And by the way, Milgram never told them what the study was about until it was published. So you would leave that day thinking you probably just electrocuted someone to death by flipping levers and delivering electric shocks when the person gave a wrong answer. About 12 years before that, Solomon Asch did a study, and you can see the pictures in your PowerPoints, and it's in the book too. But anyway, what he did was had a room full of students where everybody was in on the joke except one person. He would show a line on the projector and then have them do an activity and then later try to agree, was the line similar that you saw a while ago to A, B, or C? Everybody in the room would give the wrong answer until the last person. The last person was the one who was not in on the joke. And what was it? 75% of the time, the person would give the wrong answer. How come? Because of group sanctions. You didn't want to go against the group. When everybody in the group gave the wrong answer, you would give the wrong answer 3/4 of the time. The reason? To avoid group sanctions, not wanting to go against what everybody else was saying or doing. Moving right along. Robert Cialdini is a retired emeritus professor from ASU, actually. He wrote a lot of books and articles about sales techniques. Now, those of you who have a job, I want you to think whether you've used any of these or more to get people to buy things. Because sales obviously isn't just like showing the customer the product. You have to be able to sell things with some psychology, knowing the human mind and human behavior. So Here are 4 of many. There are many techniques. Here are 4. The foot in the door technique. Get someone to agree to something small, maybe they'll agree to something bigger. Like, will you take a sample? Oh, okay, now do you want to buy the product? Can I give you some tea? Now let me show you our product line. Would you agree to donate some canned food? Oh, would you donate some money also? The foot in the door technique. The opposite of that, pretty much, is the door in the face technique. Ask the customer for something that you're pretty sure is unreasonable. Show them the most expensive, the most time-consuming, the most labor-intensive product you have, but it's usually about the money. Something really expensive, the customer will probably say no thanks, but they'll probably still buy something. So there is the door in the face technique. Lowballing, next sales technique, knowing psychology. Get someone to agree to something, and then it's not quite what they agreed on. You ever seen an ad for a new car that seemed too good to be true? Oh, it's only, whatever, $19,000. Well, you get there and you find out that it has no air conditioning, it's not automatic, it doesn't have tinted windows or any kind of stereo system, so lowballing. I've seen that with carpet cleaning, $99 for your whole house. Oh, wait a minute, you need the pre-treatment and post-treatment also. That's going to make it hundreds of dollars. Lowballing. And the last one, feigned scarcity. This one is actually quite common. Get the customer to believe this is limited time only. You have to act today. We only have one left. If you don't make this decision now, you're really going to regret it because the deal will be over. Feign scarcity. There's a lot more than this, but those are the 4 to know for your exam. So, next thing I want you to know, social psychology experiments that are different than the ones that we just talked about. So, Stanford Prison Experiment. There's a band by that name. There's a movie by that name. This is something that's well known, whether you've heard about it or not. Philip Zimbardo. He narrated those videos that we saw in class. If you had those classes with me where we showed the episodes in person. So, what he did was had his Psych 101 students, just like you, go to an abandoned jail, even though they call it prison experiment, same thing. And you would play the role of either an inmate or a prison guard. Well, for your paper, you have to have a hypothesis. Zimbardo thought it would be hard to get into the roles because you know these people anyway, they're in your classes. Exactly the opposite happened. People got into their roles a little too quickly and a little too much. He had to end the experiment prematurely because people became the roles that they are given. Festinger and attribution theory, the next one. When we see someone else do something, we attribute it to a different reason than why it's happening to me. So, if I'm driving and I swerve in my lane, I might think I lost control of my car. But when I see someone else do it, I think that person thinks they own the whole damn road, don't they? They did it on purpose. So, I get a bad grade on a test, the test was too hard. Someone else gets a bad grade, that person's lazy and didn't study. I attribute it to a different reason. The bystander effect. Darley and Latane in the 1960s did some interesting studies that show that the more people that are around, the less anybody is willing to help someone in need. But the less people that are around, the more people are willing to help. Because if there's too many people there, everyone thinks, oh, someone else will do it. It doesn't have to be me. Now we get into relationships. This is what I did my research on, so let me explain. Attraction. What makes people romantically attracted to someone else? We're going to start with the simple, and in my opinion, the boring, and move on to the interesting ones. Propinquity. How much you're around that person. Of course, if that other person grosses you out, you're not going to feel attraction ever. But in general, people tend to grow on us. You get used to them, you feel more attraction. The social exchange model. Whether you realize it or not, you kind of make a list in your head of the pros and cons, what you like and what you don't like about that other person. The social exchange model. I suppose if you're really nerdy, you create an Excel spreadsheet. Not usually. Usually it's in your head. The pros and the cons. The matching hypothesis. Yes, opposites do attract at times, but it's far more common that people find someone they find romantically interesting because that person is like them. Social economic status, appearance, body shape, interests, activities, career aspirations, whatever. We tend to find people that we match with, and that creates attraction. Now, the most interesting one to me is a little Freudian. How come? Familiarity. Unconsciously, that's the Freudian part, something feels familiar about that person. Is it the sense of humor? Is it the kindness? Is it how much the person cares? Or maybe you're even attracted to, without realizing it, bad things. The person is abusive, neglectful, mean, unloving. So obviously you want to do some self-analysis if that's true. You find yourself attracted to bad qualities in a person, but if it's good qualities, it makes sense. This personality trait reminds you of whom? It doesn't have to be mom or dad. It could be anybody from your childhood, according to that theory. A grandparent, an aunt, an uncle, whatever. Moving right along. Hazan and Shaver, that was attraction. Next topic, love. Hazan and Shaver came up with a model in the 1980s. They were Harvard psychology professors, and it was all about how you perceive your parents treated you when you were very young, an infant especially. And then, what kind of attraction do you feel in terms of love? Maybe I shouldn't have used that word attraction. We're on to love now. So, the attachment style, if your parents were warm and loving, you feel secure, and then as an adult, you develop secure romantic relationships. That's how you feel love. But if you recall your parents being cold and rejecting toward you, especially as an infant, well, you would learn to avoid getting too close to anyone. And then, as an adult, the way you feel love is to avoid getting too close. Anyone gets too close to you, you're going to push that person away. But what if your parents were ambivalent? They were either really loving or really not. Then, as a baby, you grow anxious and ambivalent, and as a grown-up, you can't decide. Someone is too close to you, you push them away. That person finds someone else, and you get jealous and want that person back. You're ambivalent, uncertain. Moving right along, Robert Sternberg was a Yale psychology professor. So that's kind of interesting. With love, we have Harvard and Yale represented here. The triangle you will see on your PowerPoint slides and in the book. Intimacy, passion, and commitment. Robert Sternberg has a test that measures this. You take a test on how you feel about your significant other. Intimacy, not sex, we'll get to that. Emotional closeness, friendship, we can talk about anything, we trust each other, we get along great. Passion, sex, excitement, I can't believe I found this person, I can't think of anything else. Passion. Commitment, you're the one that I want, I don't want anybody else. If that's the feeling, then you're high on commitment on Sternberg's love scale. Now you might have guessed, second triangle, it gets a little more complicated than that. If all you have in your relationship is intimacy, you like each other. You're friends, basically. There's no excitement, no passion, and no commitment to stay together. What if all you have is the passion? It's so exciting. Don't even know if we like each other. Maybe we don't. And no commitment to stay together. You are infatuated. That's all. What if all you have is the commitment? We're going to stay together no matter what, but there's no excitement and we don't like each other. Well, you have empty love, just the feeling that we have to stay together. Now, what if you have two of these three? Intimacy and passion? You have a romance. You have everything but the commitment to stay together. What if you have intimacy and commitment? Yeah, you're great friends and you're going to stay together no matter what, but there is no excitement. You're companions, basically. Companionate love. Think old people, right? Probably not as much excitement going on there. Maybe, what do I know? What about the bottom? You have passion and commitment. It's so exciting. I can't believe I met this person. We're going to stay together no matter what, but we don't even know if we like each other. Well, that's called fatuous love. People who get married too quickly, someone gets pregnant too quickly, you make the commitment to stay together, but you don't even know each other very well. Well, what if you are lucky to have all three? Intimacy, passion, and commitment. That's called consummate love. You have the whole thing. So, next topic, marital satisfaction. There's lots of different authors to this. It's not one person like we've talked about thus far. Here's what I want you to know. Race and ethnicity, it does not seem to impact marital satisfaction. It's not like white people are happier than black folks or Native Americans, but ethnic minorities who suddenly come into money, a lot of times that creates more stress than it does for white people, Caucasians. How are you going to act? What are you going to do with the money? Where are you going to live? Who are you going to be friends with? The stressors are different. And a lot of Caucasian people don't understand what that's like for ethnic minorities. Age at marriage. People who get married before they're 21 and after 40 tend to have more problems. How come? Well, obviously the younger end, you're more immature, but the older end, you're more set in your ways, and therefore it's difficult to get used to having another person to negotiate everything with and, come up with how everything will be done in your marriage. Income. It seems like money solves problems and you'd be happier with more money, but there's other problems when people have money. So therefore, income is not a good predictor of marital satisfaction. Now, people who feel like that they're beaten down by life and not getting a break, or they argue about money, yeah, that makes sense. But in general, money does not buy happiness, according to research. Next one, gender. Women report lower marital satisfaction, especially at the beginning of their marriages. There's probably a bunch of reasons, but think Disney. Are there more stories for girls than boys about this perfect guy's gonna sweep you off your feet and you'll live happily ever after? I think there is. We don't lie to our little boys like that as much as we do our girls, huh? Telling them that, yeah, this is gonna be perfect. So maybe it's expectations. Moving right along, career success. When women say, yeah, I'm doing great in my career, they're usually less happy in their marriages. Perhaps there's that old expectation that the woman should still be doing the housework and the child care and all of that. That would totally make sense as a reason why successful women tend to report being less happy in their marriage. Communication, the number one factor of whether you have a happy marriage. If you can talk about anything, that's a great sign. People who can't communicate, they don't have happy marriages. That is almost a definite. Duration of marriage, it tends to follow a U-shaped curve. So think about this. At the beginning of the marriage, you're happy. It goes down, it goes back up again if you stay together long enough. 40, 50 years, things tend to get better. When you have teenagers at home, not so much. At the beginning, everything's great. Everything's brand new and exciting. So duration of marriage and marital satisfaction, it tends to follow a U-shaped curve over time. Moving right along. Now, after all these days and weeks of class, I get to talk about me. My research. I was published for a study of Robert Sternberg's love triangle test and marital satisfaction. What I found was intimacy was most important for men and women. Wouldn't you think guys would be more into the sex and the excitement? Not so, according to my research. The best predictor, intimacy. It's like men and women both want to be married to their best friend. So that was a surprising finding. But also what I found was the longer you stay with the person, intimacy tends to go straight across. You don't keep feeling closer and closer to the person year after year. Passion tends to go down. Sorry, it's not as exciting after 40 years being married to the same person as it was the first 40 days. Commitment tends to go up. If you stay with that person, you tend to feel more and more committed to making things work. Last thing, divorce. John Gottman, University of Washington professor, did some really cool experiments. People would, for over 30 years, come to his clinic at the University of Washington. They would stay overnight. They would build a paper tower together. They would do all kinds of activities, talk about an argument that they had. And then when they would leave, Dr. Gottman would not only pay them $500 plus gas money, that's pretty cool, but also predict, would they still be together in 5 years? He was 94% accurate. That's amazing. He wouldn't tell them what they predicted, but he would catch up with them 5 years later. So what did he look for? These 4 things that he called the 4 horsemen. Criticism. It doesn't matter whether it's the husband, wife, or both. Do you put each other down, say mean things? You're stupid, you're careless, you only think of yourself. Criticism. Contempt, sarcasm. It doesn't even have to be words like, oh, that was smart of you. You know, you can roll your eyes, anything to be contemptuous, sarcastic. Defensiveness. I didn't do it. I didn't say that. Well, you weren't listening. Well, you don't even know what I mean. Being defensive, not taking responsibility. And the 4th one, withdrawal. Withdrawing from the conversation. I'm not talking about it. I'm done. You're not going to say another word about this to me. All of those are withdrawing from the conversation. Maybe you just get up and leave. That's withdrawing too. I highly, highly recommend that you watch the video. We're not going to be able to watch it in class together. So instead, it's in the modules of Dr. John Gottman, and there's a real live couple that went through this that you hear their perspective too. Now, before we're done with this video, you will see in the handouts for this week, in addition to the PowerPoint, this is instead of skeleton notes, many, many articles, I hate to brag, were written about me and my research in the 1990s. Here's one from the Detroit Free Press, written by an Arizona Republic reporter about love and marriage and my study, and that pretty much sums it up what my research is on that topic. So, the last thing I get to talk about for the whole semester is me, for better or worse. I really hope you enjoyed this class. Don't forget with the final exam, you're going to write 2 of your own essay questions and then answer them when you get to the bottom of the multiple choice questions. And that is it. Take care and keep in touch.